In this mini lecture, I want to talk to you about probably one of the most important and sometimes most challenging aspects of creating a speech in the outline as well as delivering the speech, and that is how you orally cite your sources. Now, just like you cite your sources if you were to write a paper, you're also going to need to cite your sources in a speech. And just as with written work, that plagiarism is a violation if you take something directly from something else and you don't give it the proper credit that you obtained it there. The same thing can happen during a speech. It's just that the way that you cite information is a little bit differently. So what I want to do is show you the ways that you're going to cite your information in a speech and how that's a little different than what you're accustomed to when you write. So let's find out how we do that. First of all, again, to reinforce, this is called orally citing your sources. Sometimes students get a little bit confused with that. They're not exactly sure what I mean. So orally, that's something that's spoken, and citing your sources. So just as you would cite in a paper, you're going to cite during your speech. Difference is you're going to say it. So now we need to figure out, how do we say it? Well, remember that the outline is the plan for your speech. So the outline is where you're going to need to start with how you're going to orally cite your sources. Now, in a paper, you've been taught to use parenthetical, or some people refer to it as in-text citation, and this is where you put the source in parentheses after using some information from a source. In a speech outline, you do not use parenthetical citations. Instead, you're going to write the source into your preparation outline the way that you hope to say it. Keep word there being hope to say it during the speech. One of the things I recognize is that orally citing sources feels very, very awkward. You're going to not remember exactly what you were going to say. Oh my goodness, did I give enough information? Okay, it just feels kind of strange to say this. So this is why it's critical that you write this in your preparation outline in a very clear way. Remember, you're practicing using your preparation outline, and then I'll talk in a minute why you should also put that the same way right in your delivery outline. So because we're going to be orally citing, we're going to be saying our sources, we need to include significantly more information in this citation than you would with just a parenthetical citation in a written paper. So in the outline, we're going to write all of that important information right into our outline so that we can practice saying it during the speech, so that we increase the likelihood that during the speech it's going to come out pretty good, and then it's also going to go into your delivery outline. So when we are listening to a speech, imagine you're just sitting listening to a speech. You don't have a list of works cited that you would perhaps have if you were reading a paper that you could go refer to. Maybe there's something you read and you could think, oh, that was interesting. You know, they parenthetically cite that, and you could flip back to the work cited. When you're listening to a speech, you don't have that. So as the speaker, it is your responsibility to make sure that you tell the audience as much as you can about where you got your information. Failing to do this is going to diminish your credibility as a speaker, and that is something you do not want to do, and can also be interpreted as plagiarism. You're taking information that was from somewhere else and claiming it as your own. So exactly what do you include in these crazy oral citations? Well, generally speaking, you want to give your audience enough information about your source so that they can know two things: exactly where you got the information. Just saying a website is not enough. So we need to know exactly where you got the information, and we need to evaluate the credibility of your information. Why should we believe this source that you're trying to use? What makes this source credible as you're using it to support some information you're giving in your speech? So exactly what are you going to try to include? Well, first, this is going to look a lot like a list of works cited, what you would put if you were using MLA or APA format. You need the author, or who is responsible for generating the information. You know, sometimes you don't always know an author. I know that we often use a lot of sources that we get online, And some of those are good and some of those are not as good. And sometimes we don't know the author as far as a name, but we do know that there must be some organization that was responsible for creating the information. So who's responsible for generating the information? Maybe it's John Jones, maybe it's the American Cancer Society, maybe it's Johns Hopkins, maybe it's a blog site, but we need to know exactly who is responsible for generating the information. We also need to know, it's not enough just to say the person's name or even maybe just to even say the name of the organization. We need to understand, why is this source credible? Why should we listen to what this author or this organization has to say? Someone with a PhD in philosophy may be Dr. Jones, but that does not mean they're credible about anything about medicine. So why is that author credible? Let's say you're doing a speech and it's about art and you are using a book by somebody and they have been an artist for 30 years and they're an art instructor and they are an art critic and they write for the New York Times. Wow, if I knew a little bit of that information when I hear it, or as a listener and I hear it in a speech, I'd say, oh, okay, that sounds like it's a good source. Also, we want to know the type of source. Did you get it from a magazine? Did you get it from a website? Did you get it from a book? Did you talk to, your supervisor at work who's been working at the pet store for, 20 years and knows all about how to care for something? What type of a source is it? Is there a title? So just saying an article on CNN.com does not give me enough. What article? What was it called? Who made it? Why is that person credible? Why should I listen to that person? When was it published? Okay, we need the title or some description of the source. And finally, the date. When was the source published? You're able to find all this information generally on websites. You need to go around and search for it. If you get something from any of the hack databases, it's going to have dates and whatnot on there. If you use a book, if you use a magazine, that's all. The dates are going to be a little easier to find from those types of sources. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples. And what I've done is I've given you basically one example, and we're going to start with something that's really bad, and we're going to move to getting better, and then we're going to say, oh my gosh, that one's great. So, bad example. I found information on a website that said, when I hear something like that, immediately red flags go up for me. Well, what website? Well, who put it out there? Well, when did they put it out there? Well, why should I believe what they have to say? Or, and this one gets me, studies show that. Well, what studies? Who did the study? Where was it published? What was the study about? Why is this person credible to do this study? Those are very bad examples of how to orally cite something. If you do that, that is not going to be counted as a source. Okay. All right, so here's getting a little bit better now. An article on CNN called 10 Reasons to Get the Flu Shot said that, and then whatever it said. Okay, an article on CNN. All right, I don't know if that was a website. I'm guessing since you used the word article, CNN doesn't publish anything. I'm going to guess it probably wasn't on a news program. And I have the name of the article. So if you remember going back to some different things here we would have the author or who was responsible a little bit for generating the information. And we have a title. But we don't know when, we don't know if we really want to believe it or not. So we're getting better. We have a little more information than just, I found some information on a website, but we're not quite there yet. So let's take a look at this great example. John Smith, oh, look, that's the author. Physician and medical correspondent for CNN. Oh, he's a physician and a medical correspondent. Okay, that really helps build his credibility. In an online article on CNN, oh, got it on a website at CNN on May 14th, 2016. I know exactly when it was published. 10 Reasons to Get the Flu Shot, and there's the name of the article. Wow. When I hear that in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I got a person who seems pretty credible. I know exactly where you got the information. It seems like a kind of recent, and I have the title of the article, so if I wanted to go check it out, I could. That, to me, as a listener, makes the speaker seem so much more credible in the information they're presenting. So, bad example, getting better, and that great one. Slide 6, if you go through this, keep that in mind. Some recommendations. You must write your sources in your preparation outline using good oral citation structure. You're going to lose points if you do not follow this format. If you use this bad example, that's not going to get you the points. Getting better, all right, getting better, might get a few points. This great example is really what you're striving for. So that has to be written that way in your preparation outline. My suggestion is that you also write your source in your delivery outline the way you want to say it during your speech. Just go ahead, if you use paper, do a copy and paste function, put that source the same way in your delivery outline. This way, if you need to refer to that during your speech, you're going to have it. You can practice saying it, and if you need to go ahead and look at that during your speech, you know that you're going to have it there. Okay, now works cited or bibliography. This is something totally different than oral citation, but is exactly the same as what you're used to doing if you took an English class. At the end of your preparation outline, remember you're going to include a list of works cited or bibliography. They're the same thing. I don't care what you call them. You can use MLA or APA style. Just putting a website is not enough. If you need some help with how to do that, Hack Library has some resources on how to cite sources. Another thing you can do, don't do this in your English class, but go ahead and use easybib.com. Put in some information, and it's usually able to generate for you a citation that's going to be good enough. All right, number of sources for the speeches. The informative speech needs 4 sources. The persuasive speech needs 5 sources. All of your sources must be included in your preparation outline and written in proper oral citation format. I also need to hear those sources during the speech. Failure to do this could be considered plagiarism, and that's not a situation you want to get into. So, oral citations, the way that you're going to say your sources during your speech, it's different than how you write a paper. Keep this: bad example, getting better, and great example. If you want, just go ahead and print off this slide as an example. Those sources need to be written in that preparation outline using the great example, not the bad example.